In the beginning, Hiro was seen sitting on a throne while countless demons screamed and praised him. As he looked around, he wondered how things had ended up like this. The story then shifted to the past. A woman sitting on a throne introduced him as Hiro, an ordinary guy from Earth. Beside her, Hiro sat quietly and listened before asking who she was. The woman replied that she should be the one asking that question. She wondered why. Someone who wasn't even scheduled to be sent to another world was standing right in front of her. Confused, Hiro asked, "Another world?" The woman complained that people kept creating more work for her with their sloppy mistakes. Then she looked at him and pointed out that he was a shut-in, socially awkward, and had zero friends and zero girlfriends. She bluntly called him a total loser. Hiro thought about how everyone around him seemed like lowlifes and how he never saw the point of going to school. As far as he was concerned, he already had plenty of friends and girlfriends in his games. Why would he need to go outside and talk to people? Then he realized what he had just admitted and immediately started crying, insisting that it wasn't like he was actually a loser. The woman pointed out that he had practically admitted it himself. Trying to change the subject, Hiro asked her to simply send him back home if all of this had been a mistake. The woman refused, explaining that once someone arrived there, they had to visit another world first. There were no exceptions. Hiro was stunned. He shouted that it was unfair since the mistake had been theirs. The woman casually turned her face away and admitted that it was a mistake. Although technically she wasn't the one responsible for it, at that moment, a magic circle began shining beneath Hiro's feet. The woman explained that she would give him a free blessing so he could survive in the other world and told him to enjoy his new life until the paperwork was sorted out. Hiro immediately demanded to know what a blessing even was. The woman explained that it would make his body incredibly durable. Hiro paused before asking if that was really all it did. The woman then added that there was one more effect: he was going to be insanely popular in the other world. Hearing that, Hiro immediately imagined girls from another world and began to reconsider. Thinking it over, he admitted that maybe going there wouldn't be the worst thing ever. The woman remarked that he was surprisingly easy to convince. Declaring that she now had his verbal agreement, she prepared to send him off. Realizing he had forgotten something important, Hiro quickly asked how he was supposed to get back home. The woman casually suggested that defeating the Demon King might send him straight back. Shocked, Hiro repeated, "The Demon King?" Before he could get any further explanation, the scene shifted. Hiro was suddenly falling through the sky into another world. As he descended, he cursed the goddess for throwing him out without explaining anything, and declared that he was going to live his best life in this new world. The scene then shifted to Hiro falling from the sky, only to land directly on top of a woman. Both of them stared at each other in confusion. "Huh?" they said at the same time. Moments later, several women quickly gathered around them. Seeing the crowd, Hiro remembered what the goddess had said and wondered if this was what she meant by him being popular. He got to his feet and introduced himself, saying that it was nice to meet them. Before he could finish, the woman immediately told him to stay away from her and demanded to know where he had come from and who he was. Hiro was caught off guard. This was definitely not what he had expected. One of the party members suddenly pointed out that he wasn't carrying any weapons. The woman acknowledged that, but warned that if he was here, he might still be one of them. Realizing there had been a misunderstanding, Hiro decided he needed to clear things up. He tried to speak, but before he could explain himself, a loud noise echoed through the area. Everyone immediately turned toward the source of the sound. A demon had appeared. The entire group instantly prepared for battle. One of the girls panicked and shouted that it was a member of the Demon King's army. Hearing that, Hiro repeated, "The Demon King." Before the demon could say anything, another girl identified her as Homura, the warrior who had wiped out an entire army by herself. Another added that she was so terrifying that even dragons fled from her in fear. The woman standing at the front immediately concluded that Homura was far too dangerous and that they needed to retreat. However, the male hero refused. As a hero, he declared that he couldn't back down. A moment later, Homura launched an attack. The hero managed to withstand the blow. Watching from the sidelines, Hiro wondered what kind of insanity he had been dragged into. Still, if that guy was the hero, then surely he could handle the situation. The hero stared at Homura and admitted that this was the true power of Homura, from the Demon King's army. He then ordered everyone to fall back, explaining that she was still too strong for them to handle. Everyone immediately followed his command and fled. Unfortunately, they also left Hiro behind. Watching them disappear, Hiro shouted in disbelief, wondering who would leave someone behind like that. With no other choice, he started running as fast as he could. As he ran, he panted heavily and realized that his stamina was exactly the same as it had been back on Earth. At that moment, Homura suddenly leaped into the air. Hiro looked up and saw her descending toward him. At that point, he couldn't help but complain to himself. He wasn't popular. He had zero extra stamina, and unlike the protagonists in those stories, he hadn't been turned into some overpowered cheat character. Homura suddenly leaped onto Hiro, knocking him to the ground. Caught completely off guard, Hiro cried out in pain. As he looked up, Homura began slowly walking toward him with an intimidating presence. At that moment, Hiro abandoned all thoughts of enjoying his new life in another world. His life was literally flashing before his eyes. Homura reached out as if she was about to grab him, panicking. Hiro immediately shouted for her to stop, then, without warning, the two of them ended up kissing. Hiro froze in shock. His mind went completely blank as he struggled to understand what was happening. Homura stared at him before slamming her hand against a nearby tree. Seeing how frightened he was, she leaned in close and declared that it was time to dig in. However, instead of attacking him, she suddenly wrapped her arms around him in a hug. Hiro's thoughts immediately spiraled into confusion. He couldn't understand what was happening. There was no way this was normal. When the goddess said he would be popular, had she meant with terrifying monsters like this? Because if so, this was definitely not part of the plan. Thus began Hiro's chaotic new life. The scene then shifted as Homura moved closer to Hiro and spoke to him. Hiro stared at her and thought that she was incredibly close. He noticed how long her eyelashes were and wondered how that was even possible. Now that he had finally calmed down and taken a proper look at her, he realized she was gorgeous. However, he quickly reminded himself that she was part of the Demon King's army and that he needed to get away from her. Suddenly, Homura licked Hiro's cheek, catching him completely off guard. Hiro immediately wondered if he was about to be eaten. He then shouted, telling her to hold on for a second because everything was happening far too quickly and he had no idea what was going on. Homura simply replied, "Nothing," before suddenly slicing at something. For a brief moment, Hiro wondered if he had been killed. However, when he looked behind him, he saw that Homura had actually slain a monster. Homura remarked that it had been a close call. Hiro thought to himself that although he had just considered her beautiful, she was still absolutely terrifying. Quietly, he thanked her for saving him. Homura then commented that both of them had ended up getting a little dirty. Without hesitation, she picked Hiro up and told him that they were going to take a dip. The scene shifted again, revealing the two of them bathing in a lake. Hiro reflected on how everything had happened in the blink of an eye. Homura then asked whether he was going to wash himself. Hiro awkwardly replied that he was not. However, when he looked behind him, he saw Homura standing there, pouring water over herself as she remarked that it felt amazing. Hiro assumed that she wanted him to wash her and said so. Immediately afterward, he shouted for her to wait. In response, he instinctively retaliated and accidentally grabbed Homura's tail. The action caused Homura to flinch violently. Hiro was left wondering what had just happened. Homura then remarked that grabbing her tail right from the start made him exactly the kind of man she had imagined. She moved closer to him and added that this made things much simpler. Confused, Hiro admitted that he had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. Homura suddenly pulled him into a hug and declared that they would spend the rest of their lives together. Hiro could only respond with a shocked, "Huh?" As she held him tightly, Hiro thought that the situation felt surprisingly sweet, but also that he had somehow crossed a major line. Because Homura was squeezing him so tightly, he could barely breathe and began shouting that he was going to die. Homura finally released him and casually asked if they should get going. Confused, Hiro asked where they were going. Homura answered that they were heading back home. Relieved, Hiro thought that they were finally returning to civilization. However, another realization immediately struck him. He wondered if home actually meant returning to the Demon King's army. The scene then shifted once more, showing Homura carrying Hiro away while declaring that she would never let him go. Meanwhile, Hiro desperately screamed for help and demanded to be let go. The scene shifts as Homura announced their arrival, prompting Hiro to realize with a jolt that he had actually come to the Demon King's base. Upon entering, Hiro anxiously wondered what kind of terrifying monsters might be lurking inside. However, Homura reassured him, noting that while the place was currently abandoned and empty, it would be enough to spend the night. Hiro felt a wave of relief. They both entered a room, and Homura told him that he must be tired, adding that although there was nothing there, he should make himself at home. Hiro thanked her, grateful to finally have a roof over his head. Yet, unnoticed by him, a smirk crossed Homura's face. Believing there was truly nothing in the room, Hiro thought that just being able to sleep on the floor was a blessing. Seeing this, Homura asked what he was doing and warned him that he would catch a chill down there. She then slammed a futon onto the floor, sending Hiro flying back, and told him there was no need to go out of his way to sleep on the cold floor. Inviting him into the futon, Homura suggested that they would be warm if they slept together. Hiro realized the logic in her words, but he couldn't help but wonder if she meant eating him alive. He looked at her and saw that she was smiling. Hiro began to slowly crawl his way toward her, but right then, voices drifted in from outside. Someone asked if they had just heard something, and another person questioned if they really did. Looking out the window, Hiro spotted a party of knights, recognizing them as the heroes. Outside, the hero of the knights noted that the place looked like a Demon King army base, while a girl in the party observed that it seemed to be abandoned. The hero then suggested they camp there for the night, once they made sure it was empty. Hearing this, Homura stood up, suddenly glowing with rage. Witnessing her intense reaction, Hiro was left completely taken aback. Overcome with anger, Homura punched the wall of the room, completely shattering it. The hero's party looked on in absolute shock. The hero screamed, demanding to know if someone was in there, just as Homura jumped out and slammed heavily onto the ground. Driven by rage, she immediately moved to attack the party. Recognizing her, the hero questioned why she was there. One of the girls in the group pointed out the intense pressure radiating from her, noting that while she didn't fully understand it, the woman was definitely pissed off. Watching the chaos unfold from above, Hiro anxiously realized that the situation was bad. Fearing that at this rate, the scene then shifted to Homura, her face filled with anger, while Hiro watched everything from above. One of the girls in the knight's party asked if they should run away. The knight refused, saying that Homura was empty-handed, so they definitely had a chance. Watching from above, Hiro thought that the heroes were fired up as well. Then a thought crossed his mind. If they fought right now, couldn't the heroes actually win? The knight prepared himself for battle. Homura immediately launched a slash, but one of the party members blocked the attack. She quickly retreated, but from behind, one of the knight's companions chanted, Helsig, and unleashed an attack. At the same time, the knight charged at her from the front. Homura narrowly dodged both attacks. However, as she regained her footing, she noticed that her bicep had been sliced. Seeing that, Hiro was startled. One by one, the members of the knight's party became convinced they could win. They realized that without a weapon, they could block her attacks. As long as they kept up the pressure without giving her a chance to recover, victory would be theirs. Just then, Hiro suddenly jumped down from above and shouted, "Wait!" He landed after leaping down the mountainside, drawing everyone's attention. The knight looked at him and warned that it was dangerous, telling him to get back. Hiro awkwardly pointed out that ganging up on someone who was completely unarmed was kind of lame. The knight looked at him, the rest of the party did the same, and silence fell over the battlefield. After a brief pause, the knight admitted that Hiro had a point. The girl standing behind him agreed as well. The entire party then decided to withdraw, saying they would settle it next time. Watching them leave, Hiro thought in disbelief that they had just thrown away their golden opportunity. Moments later, Homura quietly stepped up behind him. Slowly looking back, Hiro nervously thought that this was bad. With no one else left, all of her pent-up anger would surely be directed at him. Instead, Homura simply blushed as she looked at him. Hiro was left completely confused. She then asked if he had just protected her. Hiro awkwardly denied it, saying that wasn't really the case. Homura replied that it was the first time anyone had ever protected her. She admitted that it wasn't a bad feeling and thanked him. She then hugged Hiro. As she embraced him, Hiro couldn't help but wonder why she hadn't simply wiped the floor with the heroes anyway. Homura then smiled and asked if they should pick up where they had left off. After that, the two returned to the room to rest. The scene then shifted once again. Someone's voice suddenly asked, "What are you doing?" It was then revealed that a mysterious girl had been secretly spying on Hiro and the others. Who on earth was she?